let's just do a little bit of breaking news from this afternoon, broken this morning, in fact, on talkSPORT. Michael Carrick has been offered a 2-year deal to be Manchester United manager. They are aiming to get it done by the weekend, if they can. A 2-year deal with a year's option on top. Steve Holland is going to be staying on 2 with the team. I mean, it's very difficult to say at this point this is the wrong decision. I was a guy who came on radio after 3 games and was like, do you have a better option right now? Let's give this guy a year and see what he can do. And I think most Man United fans, it feels like have been won round by that. There are some who like the glitz and the glamour of some possible other names. I feel like 32 points from 42. They'd be top of the Premier League based on the form table since he took over. What more could he have done? There's a lot of rebuilding to do in the summer, but this feels 100%. Like the right decision to me.
I think it is too. I think a lot of Man United fans, unfortunately, just have PTSD because they've been trying to find the Sir Alex Ferguson replacement. And once again, you're kind of tapping back into the past to find someone that can bring back that nostalgia, bring back that identity that Manchester United has had for so long, that so many generations have been able to enjoy. And is it going to be Carrick? It's more so they're trying to protect themselves in the event it does not work out. And in the event that after 1 year, this thing, it goes sideways once again. And this contract essentially is suggesting that Manchester United ownership is probably feeling the same way. What you said, it was a 2-year deal with a 3rd-year option. Mm-hmm. So it's not like it's the longest leash that he will have. Next year is going to be crucial for Michael Carrick. This summer is going to be important in terms of who they bring in, what kind of depth they'll be able to have, what they'll be able to do to compete both in the Premier League and Champions League, which I know Flex says is not a big deal, but I think it still is. It's 2 competitions that you're participating in alongside with the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup, which they were knocked out of very early. So all of these factors go into play of whether they'll be able to have the proper depth to compete in 4 different competitions. And that's something that I don't think we've seen from a depth-wise for Manchester United in quite some time. So are we going to hold that against Carrick if, in fact, they're not able to bring in the adequate depth that he needs to compete on all fronts, and then they can cut their losses at the end of next season? It's a tough position to be in, but that's the spot that they find themselves in. It's not the most convincing sign of approval from the board that it's only a 2-year deal with a 3rd-year option. But
I'm not out here looking for them to give him a 5-year mega contract. I don't think that was necessarily the way to go down. I think Carrick is going to take the job on. He's too steady for it to let that affect him. I think this is a great decision. It's a great move from Man United. I'm really on board.
Do you think he'll make it through the next year?
Yeah, I do. I think they have to do a lot more than maybe some Man United fans realise. That squad is not in a great state right now. Like, we've already talked about their midfield, if and when they lose Casemiro, if and when they lose Ugarte as well, which is a move most Man United fans are happy to see happen. But essentially, you've only got Kobbie Mainoo in the middle. What are you doing up top? What are you doing at fullback? There's loads of question marks about this team. Depth is clearly an issue as well. When you're going to be playing in Europe, you're going to be playing on 4 fronts. So all of those things. So they need to not just back him with a contract, they need to back him with some money as well. They need to show that they are going to do some smart business in the market. All of that has to happen. But as a coach, as a guy with, in terms of tactical nous, as a leader of men and a guy that knows how to train people up and knows how to bring the best out of people, I think what we've seen from him so far in his career is all very positive. This does,
do vibes create wins? And it has this year, yes, but is that something that is a model of consistency that will result and being able to bring Manchester United back to where they're at? And that is the biggest question I feel like that has to be answered. And I can understand the skepticism that you need more than vibes and
if I had to make a direct comparison, right? If I had to make a comparison with somebody else who was left in a similar situation, right? Frank Lampard managed in the Championship, came close to getting Derby promoted, didn't get Derby promoted, ended up getting a chance at the Chelsea job, right? That's a very truncated version of that storyline, but basically that's the storyline. He went to Chelsea, and that was classic Chelsea of recent years, coming in, dealing with egos, 5 different manager squads, contracts all over the place, complete and utter mess. And he had to try and come in and figure it out and settle heads. And I don't think he did a bad job. He brought a lot of young players through, but he went into that second season and they just tanked after a really good first year, right? I wasn't sure he was ready for that job at the time. And I think it's great that he went back to the Championship, reset himself, did a brilliant job, sensational job. It really won me round. I wasn't convinced of Frank Lampard as a manager long term. And now has got Coventry back to the Premier League. sensational. What a job he's done. Carrick, I feel differently about. I think the job that he did at Middlesbrough, considering the financial restraints of that club versus the other teams they were competing with at the top end of the Championship, considering the fact they kept selling their best players, particularly their star striker during that time. Like, I think the expectations were unfair from what they expected from him, because he did get them into the playoffs and then drop back out again, versus what he could actually achieve. It was an incredibly tough job. But I was very impressed with what he did there. I just think he's the kind of guy who's come in, he's already steadied the ship. He's already got, there's only one or two really guys there who you need to get on board. He seems to have those guys on board, the Bruno Fernandes, etc. of the world. It isn't like Chelsea, where if you lose that dressing room, you could really lose it. Yes, it's going to be interesting to see how he builds a team now. He's going to have some money and some backing, but I trust him to just be a bit more steady. I feel like he is ready for this. I really do feel.
But do you need a steady arm, or do you need someone that can help elevate this? Because third place, I'm sorry, it's not good enough for Manchester United.
If they qualify for the Champions League next season, if they qualify again, if they finish top 4 and they're pushing into latter stages of cups, maybe they reach final, maybe they win a domestic piece of silverware. But even if they're reaching semi-finals of cups and they finish top 4, I think that's a successful season for Man United. As long as they rebuild, as long as they're pushing forward, as long as they cut a load of that chaff and bring in some new talent. You've got to see progress on the pitch, but from a results perspective, I think top 4 is and maybe getting out of the group stage of the Champions League and getting into the latter stage of the Cups. That is a successful season as far as I'm concerned, based on what we've seen in the Amorim era.
They sacked Erik ten Hag despite the fact that he won trophies. And that's, again, whether that precedent still exists now with the new vibes and the Michael Carrick sentiment that everyone has, I'm not sure, but that is a precedent that we have seen from Manchester United. So there has to be something that's elevated this year. If in fact they are going to spend big and they are going to invest in Carrick's project, as they tried to do with Ruben Amorim, as they tried to do with Erik ten Hag, with whatever resources they have, being able to make it the Champions League. If they're going to invest in this project, unfortunately the pressure is on for him to show some sort of results. And I think it has to be in some way a trophy, because if not, then there's more reason and subject for them to move on from him. And that's what this contract essentially tells me.
How is it different from Mikel Arteta taking over Arsenal 6 years ago and the time that he was given and the time that he took to turn it around?
That's a great question. I mean, I guess
because
the immediacy of
yeah, like that wasn't the brief he was given. Why should that be the brief for Carrick?
I agree. I mean, I think it's two different circumstances and two different situations. In terms of Arteta and getting him back to Champions League and what he was able to do, like it took some time. I agree with you. I think perhaps what Arsenal was dealing with is a bigger mess than what Manchester United is dealing with.
I mean, Manchester United feels like a pretty big mess if you ask their fans, but
it does. But they're still able to spin. They're still able to find ways to try and at least build within the project. Like, Arsenal's hamstrung because of the stadium, and I know that people want to use that excuse all the time, but it's the truth of the matter. And I feel like there's been more time distance in terms of the shadow Sir Alex Ferguson and compared to Arsene Wenger that United should be able to find more ways.
I think it's a really interesting comparison between. I think it's like maybe one we need to explore in more depth, but Adrian Durham is in the building, and so we need to get to the great man. Coming up on the S Word, don't forget you can get in touch with us on all the usual social media channels, get in the chat on YouTube as well. Adrian joins us in the studio up next.
From kickoff to the full-time whistle, talkSPORT presents the S Word.